Well, that's great. You know, that's great. You're going to build back on toxic soil that down the road could cause cancer, could cause respiratory illness, could cause cognitive decline, can cause all kinds of problems. If you
So,
leave a fire in the woods, burn itself out in a forest fire, and it burns through the woods, it will come back and the biology will restore that forest, that woodland. It can take between 2 years, for weeks to a couple of years for the basic biology to start coming back, the bacteria. It can take 10 to 20 years for restoration to start where actually things are really growing again on a normal phase. It can take a century depending on the heat of the fire. So what happened with us is not only did we have an extraordinarily hot fire, and I know this because where my father's house was at Las Tunas Beach, they're all on caissons that attach to the beach. They're on steel I-beams, and then they go to the coast highway. So they attach, like that. They're coming off the coast like that. Every single property for a mile and a half, 2 miles up the coast highway from just north of Topanga to where my dad's property was, every single one of them burned down, and every single one of the metal frames of the steel I-beams melted into the soil and into the ocean. That's 2,500 degrees. That is a hot fire. That wipes out biology in the soil. And what that also does is release a ton of toxicity from everything that fell and melted and went down into that soil and into that ocean. I'm a surfer. I will not be surfing in the ocean anytime soon in Southern California.
so we do have some questions that are coming in already. And we go, please. I know that you guys have a lot of questions, and we may be able to answer them, especially related to the soil. So Andrew asked, what can we plant now to help remediate our soil on our burned and cleared by the AC, the Army Corps of Engineers lot? Looking for seriously practical ideas. So
All right,
that's
so
the
here's
thing.
what I want to do first. Let me just finish a little bit about what's happening bacterially and
Yeah.
biologically on our soil. So
Okay.
if you, Andrew, you don't know me, I'm going to give you an honest answer. I would plant nothing right now.
Yep.
Okay? I would plant nothing if I was in the fire zone right now without starting the biological remediation of my soil. I also do not believe this is a time that we should be looking at phytoremediation, which is using plants to take up toxins out of the soil, which I've done tons of phytoremediation projects. But the problem is, if we do that right now, and I'm hearing that all over with community groups where I'm like, you guys, we have Calabasas suing to stop things being taken there to their landfill. Sylmar doesn't want things taken to their landfill. Simi doesn't want anything more taken to their landfill. And the desert doesn't want any of the stuff taken to their landfill that was highly toxic that's supposed to go out there. So if we phytoremediate our soil right now at this point, what we're going to do is end up with plant material that has toxins in it as it gets drawn up out of the soil. And then what are we going to do with it? Where is it going to go? That's really why I am opposed right now to phytoremediation as a practical solution because it's not practical. So
And I
basic
wanted to add,
biology,
I wanted to add one more thing there. It is a great, thought, of course, because, you'd think, wow, with plants and, let's try to green this up and maybe it'll be better. And the actual thing is that, the microbes in the soil are what really grow the plants. And the plants would not really exist without the microbes in the soil. Well, right now, you have very little microorganisms in the soil. They're all dead, they're all completely fried. And so the way to do it is to
and poison.
remediate biologically. And so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, so basic biology, basic soil biology is we've got bacteria, we've got actinomycetes, which are groups of bacteria. Those are primarily they're microscopic, they break down, they're the smallest elements that we have, they're the smallest living organisms that we have on this planet. They break little particulates out of organic matter. What happens is larger microbes, larger fungi, then larger protozoa, soil animals come in and they break down, they eat the bacteria, they eat the other microbes, and then they do what's called mineralization, excuse me. They release nutrient back into the soil. What's happening with us right now is we have microbes that have been poisoned, microbes that have been killed from heat because they can't take the heat. And so what we're going to propose to everybody is that we start looking at ways of bioremediating. And Andrew brought up that question, how do we bioremediate? We're going to discuss that a little bit. The first thing that happens, all the bad stuff, the PFAs are forever plastics, right? The PAHs, the VOCs, the heavy metals, the asbestos, all of the stuff that landed in that ash. So they're estimating, and they have no idea really about this, 4.5 million tons of debris, of ash debris fell on us, right? With 80 to 100-mile-an-hour gusts that were happening those nights during the fires, that could spread literally, and this is not a joke, 100 miles. That's why I'm saying if you're within 25 miles and you're on this call, you're in the right place because you also need to bioremediate. If you have clients, if you're a contractor or a landscape architect or a designer or a builder, and you have clients within 25 miles from the fire zones, they need to remediate their soil as well. It's a much quicker process than those in the fire zones. So in the fire zones, so all of us need to use what are called bacterial enzymes. Bacterial enzymes will break down. They will break down the pollutants. They'll break down the toxins. And what they do is they start to take the compounds that bind them together and break them apart. The other bacteria that we find in thermophilic bacteria, which is what you find in really well-made compost and in soil, good, clean, healthy soil, the thermophilic bacteria and the other forms of bacteria that are made in hot compost then start to further break down those compounds to the point where they get to a point where they can become either gaseous or they can become water vapor. That's how small the particulates will become once the biology gets to come back into the soil and do their job. How do we do that since we don't have good biology in our soil anymore? We have to feed the biology, we have to add the biology. We do that with compost teas, compost, foods that feed biology in the soil, like kelp and fish meal. We use humic acid, humic shale that comes from ancient forests that are mined that help give the bacteria a platform to grow off of. We use all of these things in very, very small amounts to start to bring the biology back in the soil. If we can do that, then we can go ahead and we can start to know that we're going to be growing again and building again and living again on soil that we're going to, and this is the other kicker, everyone, I'm just going to tell you the truth. This is something we're going to have to do probably for the rest of a lot of our lives here in Los Angeles, because you can start to heal the biology in the soil in a very quick 6 to 8 to 9 month process, and then you have to maintain it. And that means you have to keep feeding the biology. You have to not go back to the old ways of gardening, of using chemical fertilizers, of using pesticides and herbicides and all the stuff that was the quick fix that the chemical companies have wanted to give to us for years that has already been killing off the biology in our soil and making it weak, making our
Yes, yes.
plants weak. Pardon me?
Right. But the key here is that after the 6 to 9 months, for the people who have, lost their homes and completely and everything, the thing is you've infused so much biology into your soil, and the biology is eating each other and pooping out nutrients and eating each other more and growing and growing. And so over time, you actually need less and less of these great, remediation items, biological products. So it's not, he says, definitely you're going to be needing to do this, for years and years, but with less and less. And
Correct.
actually, your soil will be better than it ever was before because it was
Cor-
toxic before, let me tell you.
Correct. And I can tell you to give you some hope on this thing, we have been on properties that people wanted to transition to farms that were organic farms from absolute toxic waste dumps. And that you would think were absolutely hopeless. There's no way we're going to be able to do this. And we have turned them into, well, actually, we haven't. Nature has, and biology has turned them into highly functioning, beautiful, healthy, and safe environments. So we can do the same thing at home. So, and Andrews, he wants to know, so how do we start? So, good question. I mean, how do we start? So, we start with if the Army Corps of Engineers is done with the cleanup, or if your contractor is done with the cleanup on your site and you're in a fire zone, then and let's say if all of your block or most of your neighborhood has been cleaned up, then you can start. If they're still kicking up dust, if there's still people working in areas, or you have don't have a neighbor that hasn't finished the work, then you shouldn't start the remediation first because you're going to get dust. And I look at this as an organic farmer, okay? Our farms are in areas that are outside of spray zones. So we aren't allowed, no one on farms near where we are allowed to spray chemicals anywhere. But when you get to the county line, which is about, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 miles from our farm, you can all of a sudden see the change in the farm properties. You can smell the change in the farm properties, and those guys spray, and they're not supposed to spray ever if it's over 10 mile per hour wind, right? Optimal, it's like 3 mile per hour. Well, I've had to make a few phone calls to the air quality guys in my counties when I've had guys spraying when I know the wind is 15, 20, 25 miles an hour, which will take that for miles, right? So that's why we test on all of our farms. So for all of you, we've had this massive blow. So what we do is, and if they're still working in the areas, we don't want that dust. That dust is going to come back onto our properties. It could have could have benzene, toluene, could have other things in there, right? That we don't want to start the remediation process until the work kind of subsides. That's going to be happening very soon. So
Right. And
you
some
need,
people, yeah, sorry.
let me finish one thing, Norma.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're going to need a very good source of compost. You're going to need to have a very good source of bacterial enzymes. You're going to have to start making compost teas that are made with real compost. And you're going to have to start feeding and fostering the biology in the soil to bring it back.
And adding a lot of water
If we all do
to the
that,
land.
if we all do that, we will have a healthy and healthier environment than we had prior to the fires. If we don't all do that, then we are going to have a very dicey time over the next couple decades. And, the more people we can get on board, the more people that we can Johnny Appleseed this concept, the better. Because this is And I don't mean to sound so serious, everyone, but I am serious because this is a very serious thing that you've been through. This is not something that I can just, give you a light, simple, easy answer, which I would love to do. I would, Norman, I would love to give you, here's the easy, quick, we can fix this in a couple weeks, and everybody goes, starts building again, or cleans their interior and gets to move back in, or everybody in the periphery can do this for everybody on the periphery and in areas like where Norm and I live, 25 miles away from the fire zones, it's a relatively quick process. So if any of you are in that situation, your process is much quicker, but still takes continued maintenance. For everyone that's in the fire zones, this is something that, for me, if I lived there, if our home was in the fire zone, I would take this as seriously as any single other thing that I'm having to deal with, because this is our environment. This is your environment. This is where your family, your pets, your children, if you have them, um, this is really, really the moment where we have to look at we didn't have this before January, but we have toxic soil now. We're in a toxic situation that we must remediate. And so I just want everybody to be aware. And I want us to be
Okay.
able to have on, if you guys want to talk to us, or if you
Yeah.
think like these guys are whacked, that's okay.
So let's go ahead and answer some questions
Yeah.
here, sweetheart. So it's a town hall. Let's get into this now. So Eliza asked and we're going to get back to a little bit more about that other question that you asked, Andrew. I'm just going down the list here. Where should we send to test soils, and what should we be requesting they test for?
Okay.
It's a really good one. Yeah.
Very good question. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Norman. Answer that one.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that from our sources, because we've been testing soil. I've been doing it for like 15 years now, and so Randy's been doing it longer. So we have very good labs that we have accounts with, and what they had basically our labs all kind of said the same thing, that at a minimum what you're gonna want to test for is regarding heavy metals, the RCRA8 metals. Those are chromium,
Arsenic, lead, mercury, cadmium, barium, selenium,
silver,
silver.
selenium, and so those are the ones that are most harmful for the human, right? And to be living around. Those are really the ones that are the big eight. And so they said that one, and then also VOCs, volatile organic compounds. So if you did that, then you would know during your soil testing, as the biology gets in there and binds the metals, and as the your solutions for removing toxins, the biological inoculants get in there and flush toxins. You'll also know that the VOCs get less and less during your testing throughout your remediation. The remediation is most important. If you guys want to go back home, this is the way to do. You've got to remediate. You really
So
do.
here's a couple things that go right along with what we're talking about with the testing. So bacteria and bacterial enzymes and the bacteria that are in thermophilic bacteria, they will break down VOCs, PAHs, PFAs, all of those things. And the other great thing about them is they bind to metals. So they make the metals less likely to be at the surface or to be uptaken by the plants in the soil. So you could have lead or mercury or cadmium in the soil for a long time, for decades or a century. It could be there a long time. But the bacteria, the gummy, sticky cellular exterior of the bacteria bind the metals in the soil. And that's how we remediate metals in soil. So when I hear about metals, yes, they can cause all kinds of very, very severe issues, from cancer to liver damage to kidney issues to, mental fog to all kinds of stuff, right? So they're not, I'm not diminishing that they're can be damaging. I mean, one of the things, like, we have chromium. So we have hexavalent chromium in our soil in the San Gabriel Mountains and in the coastal mountains of Santa Monica's, right? So one of the things I question is, like, why isn't anybody talking about that in severe fires and severe heat, that hexavalent chromium can become toxic in our soil? That was blowing around everywhere. Everywhere where we have what's called serpentine soil, that was burning. The stuff on it was on fire. It was blowing everywhere. Certainly the biologists in the county of Los Angeles and city of Los Angeles know this, and no one's talking about that, because in fire, um, that chromium that's in the soil can become much, much more damaging under the pressure of the fire. But the great thing is that the biology, the bacteria in soil, can break that back down to a trivalent, chromium that is much, much, much more inert. And that's where, so wanting to know what's in the soil, we can, there are labs out there that might talk to you. We have the ability to run tests through our labs. There are some other soil companies, service companies out there that do testing. I
The
have an
reason why we're
EPA.
not giving you the names also is because they said, please don't send all these people to us because we don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of accounts because they're just lab people. And they said, can just run them through your account because we don't want them to.
No, they're
So
scientists. Okay, our lab guy, our lab people we've been working with
you'll
are
find them
fantastic.
too.
Yeah, they're
They're
not a
not
customer
local.
service
Yeah.
agency. Trust me. After dealing with them for years, customer service is not their strong point.
Yeah, definitely not. No. Yeah. So, okay, let's keep going here.
Okay.
I wanted to mention that we have invited the Eaton Fire Residents United people who've come. There's one person who was able to make it. The others are not able to. We're not able to. But Dawn Fanning is one of them, and I don't know if you'd like to mention anything, Dawn, about about the organization. Maybe people can use you. I don't know if anybody's heard of you, but yeah,
Sure. I mean,
go for it.
Eaton Fire Residents United is an organization that popped up obviously after the fires. And what we've been doing is taking standing structure industrial hygienist tests and mapping them. And we're using that data to affect policy and advocate for better practices. So we've collaborated with all sorts of academia around the country now. We have the largest data set of post WUI industrial hygienist test results for standing structures. And because of that, there we are able to use the power of that data to sway action. And so we are going to start testing soil. I'll drop our website in the chat. No, we're not going to start testing soil. Sorry. We're going to start collecting soil tests. So
You've
part of
done,
our
yeah.
long-term goals are to partner with soil stewards, people like the Richies and others on, to help because we're trying to set protocols and practices for industrial hygienist testing and then what remediation practices. And now we're realizing that the soil is a critical component. You can clean your property all day long, but if the soil's not, treated, it's just going to blow back into your house. So it's all part and parcel of the same objective. So, yeah, I mean, that's really us
It's
in a
phenomenal.
nutshell. The website, I just dropped the link.
Perfect.
And if you get your soil tested, please start sending once we have enough tests, similar to what we did for the IH test in standing structures. Once we have enough to have a, a clear data set, then we'll start publishing. And we
Okay.
also are now a nonprofit, and we're kind of at a point where we've got to start getting funding because we've all just been running on passion and, uh, and, and now we're getting to the point where the scientists need to start getting paid. So we're kind of hit a slump for the moment.
Good.
Um, but yes,
Yeah, it's a very impressive site. It's efru.la, right, Don?
correct. Yep, I just
Yeah.
dropped it.
Incredible, yeah. And we're
So
recording this too, so it's gonna, go out there. More people need to send it out more because here you are, you guys have collected lead, a lot of information on lead as one main map that if you look on that in Altadena, if you live in Altadena and you go to the area where you live, you'll see several samples around you on lead so that you can know, all right, it's not as bad here or it is really bad in this area. And so imagine those maps like with all kinds of different metals and different, as they grow, as EFRU grows. It'd be
Yep.
great to send your samples to them.
Absolutely. And
so
our long-term goal is to get money to give grants and to help fund people for the testing and the remediation, right? So that's ultimately to help the underinsured, the uninsured. And then to also what we did by showing this data is we were able to arm the community with enough information to show insurance companies that they need to test and they need to remediate. And we were successful in that. And so we plan on doing the same with soil.
Yeah, because what I learned through them is that, and because I don't really know all that stuff, but like what I learned through them is that you need to show scientific evidence
That's right.
to make action happen, right?
That's right. Data doesn't lie. You can talk, you can plead, but when you have indisputable data, they can't argue with that. So
Uh,
we're talking to the county, we're talking to Pasadena Public Health, we're talking to everyone and everything to help, affect change.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Don. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there's a lot of questions, and
Yeah.
if you want to ask a question too, you can raise your hand and we can ask too. But I hope people stay on because there are going to be a lot of answers. I kind of was looking through the questions that people have asked, and there's a lot of good questions here.
Yeah. There,
And
let me,
we can
yeah.
give you some pretty good answers to most of these questions.
Yes, let me go to this next one right here because I'm just going down the line. Thank you so much for this info and these talks. I have your book, which I've been reading. Randy wrote Soil Remediation for the LA Fires. It's a yellow book, and you can get it on Amazon. It's a great book. It tells you exactly how to remediate. It says, I wanted to ask your thoughts regarding continuing to remediate as construction is happening around my home in Altadena. So she's already got construction going on. My home is one of three houses that survived. Wow. Any tips on keeping healthy and remediating while others are rebuilding? Oh, this is Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, if
Wow. Yep.
you should start the process of remediating. If most of your block is remediated, they're starting to do construction on your property. So if you look at the book, he said he has the book, right? So if you look
Mhm.
in there and you talk about flushing with the SLF 100, which are the bacterial enzymes that we recommend, it's a really simple process. And then you start making compost teas. We give really simple recipes. You use really good compost, and you start to use that and you start to remediate that way. We give you a 6 month remediation plan to get you started and then come in and just start doing your maintenance, right? And what that will do is it'll feed the biology, it'll get them jump started, it will start to break down the toxins in the soil. And I know somebody in there had brought up that plants are growing, things are growing. Of course, plants are still going to grow. The plants didn't get killed by the toxicity unless they were burned. But what happened is, as that stuff gets into the soil, as the rain drove those toxins from the ash further into the soil, they were uptaken in the rhizosphere of the plants, in the root zone of the plants, up into those plants. So definitely in the fire zones, don't eat anything that's there. Don't eat anything on those trees because you've got toxicity in the fruit, in the food, and then you basically are going you want to start over, with you can remediate your orchard. You don't have to start the orchard over, but you have to remediate the soil. Your stuff that's in raised beds, it's got to go. You got to redo that soil. It's not worth remediating. If you're on the periphery, you can remediate those beds, take out 4 inches of soil, and go ahead and break it down again. And the other thing that's really, really important is look at the type of compost that you're buying or you're going to get. Where did it come from? What's in it? Are there any toxins in there? If is made from food waste or food scraps, or there's anything like that in it, was all that food organic? Or were there pesticide residues in that compost, right? Or no one knows this one, but like if we buy regular compost that comes, most of the compost that we get that's bagged or from the soil yards has chicken manure in there. The chicken manure comes from conventional chicken farms because it's the largest type of manure that we have. And what happens is those animals are fed GMO corn, GMO soy, GMO alfalfa. All of it's sprayed with glyphosate. All of that stays in there, stays in the animal's guts. They poop it out and it gets into the glyphosate residue gets into our gardens. It's toxic. It has a very long half-life. If people are buying green waste, why I never use green waste from the county is because green waste is collected by everybody. And that means people that grow organically and people that don't. So people that use a lot of toxins in their yards, use a lot of herbicide, use a lot of Roundup, use a lot of fungicide, use a lot of pesticides. That stuff goes into the green bins too, and that gets composted with everything else, and it's highly toxic. So when I talk about using good compost, I mean really good compost. And so that's biologically active, biologically available, is loaded with bacteria and other microorganisms, and is going to offer a food source that's clean and safe to the soil, to the biology, to grow the biology and start that process going again. So the things that we recommend, number two organics, Calcoast, Malibu compost. Those are the composts that we recommend. One of the companies that I'm a part of, we are making provisions right now to sell bulk loads of compost to people directly off the farm. That's almost 50 miles away from where the fires were, to bring in compost that's screened, that's cleaned at a bulk level at a very, very good price versus what we normally would sell that for that product, so that we can help people. You can get 20 and 25-yard loads. Those things are going to start being up on the Grow Real Organic website, the number two organics website very soon, probably in the next week. So we've just been having some meetings on that at the different businesses so that we could offer those things. Because the reason that I became a composter, so you all know, is because I couldn't find any good, safe, clean, healthy compost for the landscapes that I was designing back in the early 2000s. And so I was buying soil yard compost, and it was causing all kinds of problems on my landscapes. And once I was able to move over to farm-made organic compost, it changed everything. So very it changed everything. It made the projects I was working on all become a biological component of landscaping, which I had never even heard of before. But I learned that from some farmers that taught me some really great stuff up in Sonoma. I had no idea what I was doing with regards to the soil before I met those guys. And they changed everything for me. So when you're looking at compost, when you're looking at stuff, when you're looking for things to put into your yard, into your garden, you can't buy the cheapest. You can't get the free stuff. You can't get the stuff that is chemical or has chemical or comes from a chemical company. You've got to get stuff that comes from companies that look at soil as a biological living organism.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
what we're
most
dealing with.
important thing. Absolutely. And people think, okay, I'm just going to go to the big box store and I'm going to get all these bags for $4 or $8 or whatever, and it's not going to do anything for you. And so you've got to get the real, like real good inputs. It's all about the inputs. What did they do? What are these ingredients? Where are they from? Is what you have to ask yourself. And is it possible to find a farm that is able to have that much real organic chicken manure and put it in bags and sell it in every single store nationwide at all these big box stores? I mean, no, it's not. They come from all conventional ag. So you have to be really careful there when you're sourcing. But
So I'm
yeah.
I'm going to throw a couple of questions that just came in. Somebody just asked me how quickly do these changes that I referred to come once I started using the compost. It started happening immediately for me because we saw changes on our job sites. All of a sudden, we were using compost and we started using compost teas, and I started using other mixes that I was taught how to use on hedges and plant material that was dying. And they came back almost instantaneously. And what happened was, first of all, my crew was blown away because they thought I had lost my mind. And second of all, my customers, my landscape customers, were really excited because they could see that something was happening. And then what happened was my landscape competitors would call me up and say, "What are you fertilizing with? Because your projects look amazing." And I said, "I'm not fertilizing anymore. I don't use fertilizer." And they thought, you're really funny. And I said, "No, I'm actually using biodynamic organic farm made compost, and I'm using compost teas." And back then, no one used compost teas because that's when compost tea kind of became a thing with Elaine Ingham back in the early 2000s. And we were one of the first people using compost tea. Norma was in Elaine Ingham's first soil food web class, and we started using the compost teas right away.
Yeah,
So
so we have Gary wants to ask a question here. Let me see here. Hold on a second. You got to unmute yourself first, Gary. Let me see here. Yeah, there you go.
It's Susan, not
oh,
Gary.
Susan,
Oh, I don't know why it
It
says.
says Gary Dubois because it's his dang computer.
Probably was
Okay.
gonna say.
I don't know how to type in the questions. I haven't done Zoom meetings. Yeah,
you're
I'm
fine.
old. I'm old. Um, so I was hoping to find out that I could remediate like my backyard and make it safe for my dog,
Yep.
but it doesn't sound like I can. Not for I,
Where do you live?
in Altadena. My house is still standing. I'm kind of on the edge of the burn zone.
Okay.
I have standing houses around me, but I have one street like 150 yards away that they haven't finished clearing yet. And I'm terrified to let her out in the backyard because what do dogs do? They
Of
dig.
course. They
They
go
go in the
dig.
shrubs. They go in the shrubs. I'm pulling out all the leaves under the shrubs. I'm thinking about power washing the shrubs.
Mhm.
I and
Okay.
and I still have a landscape. So do I put compost on top of everything that I've already got?
Yeah, and the thing I would do since you're there, I still, the compost becomes secondary. I would, with you having landscape that's there, I would still go ahead and use the SLF 100, get the bacterial enzymes,
Okay.
and then I would start learning how to make the compost teas because you can make it really simple. Like we make them in 5 gallon buckets and just
Okay.
drench stuff. We just
Okay.
start, and then we spray stuff. It's really,
Okay.
really simple. Norma and I
Okay.
do it all the time. And it's not really complicated. And then you get into the compost, and then you can start using some of the soil conditioners. But what you can do is start the process of healing your area, your zone right now, and you start
Okay.
that with, when we start in the book, in the soil remediation for the LA fires book, we start the process with the liquids, with the drenches,
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
because that permeates the soil, that
Okay.
gets into the soil, and we start that process of breaking down the toxins, right? And we
Yeah.
and the great thing about the SLF 100 too is it's a bacterial enzyme, but it also has 50 different strains of bacteria in it.
Oh,
And remember,
okay.
the bacteria also helps bind metals, right?
Right.
So
Right.
then you get the compost tea in, and you have the enzymes working, and then
And
you have, like,
you're
if you use
feeding.
a compost from Number Two Organics or from Malibu Compost or Calcoast, right? Like the ones that we are involved in making.
Okay.
Their thermophilic compost means the compost on the farms is cooked compost. So you put the manures out into these big piles, and then what happens is you turn them as they get hot. You
Right.
never let them go over 150 degrees. You keep the bacteria that's in there intact. So you end up with these great strains of bacteria that
Okay.
all work on their thermophilic bacteria. They're called
Okay.
thermophiles, and they break down toxins. They break down stuff naturally in soil. They're one of the things that help us,
Okay.
have healthy, clean soil, right? And
Okay.
that's just a natural occurrence, right? That's why I'm saying use good compost, use the things that are really going to fix the problem instead of
Okay.
exacerbate the problem.
Okay.
Right. Okay, great. And so that's actually an answer to the next question by Susan Coletta. It's basically our soil has been tested, Eaton Fire adjacent, and the lead level is close to 4 times the limit. Is there anything I can do to help the soil and keep it safe? Is mulch a good place to start? So what
No.
Randy said is, you're going to be adding, you're going to biologically remediate because the bacteria binds those lead metals and other metals, and it binds it so that it's less likely to come up through the leaves and up the surface. And mulch is not a good place to start. Composting is really good. That's one of the most important things that you want to do is compost, because compost is filled with bacteria
Yeah.
and
Is,
with all
is
this
she,
great
is she in the
biology.
fire zone? Norma, did you say?
Yeah, she's Eaton Fire adjacent.
Okay,
Adjacent.
so she needs to again start with the liquid, start with the SLF 100 and the compost teas.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to start, and then get into the compost. That starts coming next, right? But you start
Okay.
with the liquids, because really what we're trying to do is get that. The other thing too that has to happen is we want to break that crust of the soil that's been damaged. Okay, it's either been damaged by the heat, it's been damaged by the toxicity of the ash fallout. Okay. And so we've killed the biology in two different ways. If you put the liquid in there, we also need, we're working with aerobic microorganisms, meaning that they have oxygen, right? So what we want to do is we want to keep the soil moist, and we want to get the bacteria in there, the enzymes in there, and then we start coming in with, when I say light doses of compost, people look at me when we tell them what we do when we do consulting, and they go, "You're going to put down a 16th of an inch of compost or a quarter inch of compost? Well, what is that going to do?" Well, if you're using a living compost, a living soil loaded with biology, it's going to do a lot. If you're using a compost that comes from a soil yard, or comes from the dump, or comes from, that comes from the big ag, that guys that support, big gardening, and put it in big bags and sell it at big boxes, then you're going to get nothing out of that quarter of an inch or 16th of an inch,
Hmm.
because it's not composted well, and it's toxic. Dawn has her hand up. Norma?
Yeah, we have to start to really give answers that are just quicker, because we've got like 30 questions here,
Okay,
Dustin. So, okay, we have
I'll
about
try.
40 minutes left.
I'm happy to wait until other hands are raised, but my questions
Go
might
ahead,
help
Don. Yes,
answer some
indeed.
questions.
Yes, please.
So questions like this, the SLF 100 and the compost tea. Imagine like a yard, a half a mile from the burn,
Hmm.
and there's DG, there's, rocks, there's landscaping, some grass, just kind of like a mix of landscaping. So attach something to your hose and you spray it everywhere? Do you
Great
have to
question.
turn it in the soil? Then my follow-ups are, how often do you do that? And then at what point do you test to see where the level at what point do those levels can be expected to change?
So the first thing we want to do is we want to test first, right? And then we want to start using the remediation methods, right? So when you're that idea of spraying it out through a hose, you can do that through a couple different types of apparatus, or you can make in a large area, if you have a large area, like a trash can size, get a BPA-free trash can size that has a spigot on the bottom. They sell them at a lot of
Yeah.
different places, and then you go ahead and make your compost tea or your SLF 100 liquid in there, and you
You
attach
mix
a hose to
them?
the bottom.
You
Pardon me?
mix them together in one solution?
Uh, well, you're going to know because you can at certain points, but you want to in the beginning get the SLF 100 in there first, and then you follow up with the compost tea. Uh,
How long after?
it takes, the first month of remediation, you're literally, if you're in the fire zone, you're using the SLF 100 and you're using compost tea every other week.
So you do I'm sorry, I'm unclear. You use the SLF 100 one day and then you use the tea the next day, or you do
No, no, no. A week
mixed?
later, a week later.
So you do
Yeah,
SLF one week, tea the next week, and then you just keep going, alternating.
you keep
Well,
alternating
Got it.
for your place because of the because you're right in it. You're half a mile. So she property type two, darling.
yeah, if you're
Yeah.
property type two, so you're going to do that, and then what's going to happen with you? And that's the thing too. That's why we've done the classes. For the soil remediation for the LA
Yeah.
fires, we've done a bunch of free Zoom classes where we go through these. So I don't want to go through the entire
Fine. That's
protocols with
fair.
everybody right
Have
now because
more. Have more of
yeah,
those classes.
yeah. So we also have that up on the Grow Real Organic YouTube channel,
Oh,
and
great.
and then the book Soil Remediation for the LA Fires is available. That really walks you through it, or a
Step by step.
contractor through it. You can DIY it, or
Awesome.
a contractor or a landscaper. Anybody can walk themselves or their client through, your homeowner, how to do it.
Awesome. So where
So
do you get the SLF 100?
They sell that at Aquaflow, which
Aquaflow
which
Supply.
out by that's in Glendale.
It's Aqua and then FLO
Okay.
Supply. They have many different stores in Southern California. But
Okay, great.
yeah, we're pretty much partnering with them to get many of the items, and they also another company that carries them is Anawalt Lumber.
Oh,
But out by Altadena, it would
Yeah,
be it would be Aquaflow in Glendale.
in Glendale is the
okay. And
closest.
so do you do that same thing for DG?
Yes, you can flush the DG, to get that to get those toxins off. Yes, you can.
And then you spray it on your plants and at the base of your trees and on the leaves, like,
Rain
for
would be
Yeah,
very
trees.
you
good,
you you, you
very
need
good.
the intensive version of this, Don, because you just need the protocols. They're
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
They're available.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just know
Okay.
some people are asking some of this. So I think pointing us to those protocols would be super helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Let's see here. Andrew says, so how do we start? We've mentioned that. Where do we get the bacterial enzymes? You can go to Aquaflow,
That's the
supply.
SLF 100.
How do you apply them and in what amounts? The book Soil Remediation for the LA Fires tells you exactly what to do for your property type over several months. And it's actually we gave free classes on soil remediation for the LA fires. We gave about, I don't know, like 7 of them or something. We have a recording that we're going to be putting out on YouTube probably on Friday. And so it's our YouTube channel at Grow Real Organic. And so check it out on Friday because we can't do it until then. But by the end of the day, we'll have it up, and it's a really good class. And it tells you, it goes through slides of all the things that you do through the 3 months and through the 6 months, every single month up to 6 months. And so you get a really good idea of what you need to do there. So that's a good place to start. So starting on Friday, we'll make sure we get that up for you, Andrew, and everyone else. Um, let's see here. How far from your property is close? Dawn asked how far from your property is close.
That was in reference to Randy's when he
Oh,
was talking about
oh,
if
sorry.
you're close to
Yeah,
the cleanup. So what I
yeah,
meant was like how close is close.
got it. Okay, and then we're
Hey
living.
Norma, can I answer one real quick that's on here from Adriana? She
Yeah,
asked about the what kind of composting, general soil composting. Is there a way to partner with LA Compost to make it a large scale effort? Maybe we can see if LA Compost can help us make a local compost hub. So here's the thing. What does LA Compost use to compost with? I have no idea. I think they must use local inputs. They must use maybe food waste, green waste. I don't know what they're using, right? So until I knew what they were using, I couldn't recommend that compost until I saw what they were using and what the lab results on the toxicology panels and the genetic IDs look like. So for me, like that's why we have big farms. That's why I got out of landscaping and got into big farming and making lots of compost on farms with really clean inputs so that we have massive volumes of compost. Because what I learned as a landscaper, the one thing that was lacking the most for me on my projects was good, clean compost. Once I started using that, changed everything. Then we started working with vineyards. We started working transitioning farms to organic. I started working with golf courses that were over waterways that needed to not be toxic. We started to work on all kinds of big public parks that had to be clean. And the one thing that you had to have to do all of those things was good, clean, safe, non-toxic compost.
yep, yeah,
So I can't, I'm not it's like, so back in the day, I might have said, great, let's go. I'm not that guy anymore. I'm that guy that's like, no, we have too much disease in this country, too much sickness, too much illness in our food supply, and it stems from what we eat, how it's grown. So same way with growing the soil. The soil biome is very similar to the gut biome in us, in human beings. So we need to have healthy, clean, real organic inputs loaded with biology, loaded with bacteria. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's what I'd need to know.
Right, and what we recommend is basically Malibu compost. They are the cleanest compost that you can get in a bag. They don't make their compost on in Malibu. They make it in Northern California and Northern Oregon. Randy, he's the owner of the company, which has got his start in being a real organic farmer and gardener. And we're not just, saying this because he's the owner, but because it really is extraordinary. It is
Right.
so clean and so filled with biology that, definitely, at least with your compost teas, always use that compost because a compost tea is only as good as the compost that you're going to be using. But we also recommend, and we're answering Andrew's question here too, is we also recommend number two organics, and they're also a great compost. And they're sold also through a company. It's their bags are called Calcoast Soils through Aquaflow Supply as well. But basically, number two organics and Malibu compost, you can get it in stores nationwide, but not in big box stores.
Number two is also the soil company that's local, it's regional, that has regional microbes that we're going to be posting up and offering bulk through that company. So number2organics.com, we'll be posting that up. That will be something where, hey, if you wanted to split a load with a neighbor, you could get 20 yards. if we're sending it off the farm and it's not going to a bagging facility and doing all that stuff, right? It's going to go right to properties, right? Or a couple properties or to a block, right? So what we're doing is we're taking out all of these stages and steps that are very expensive in that, right? So if there were two or three people that wanted to get a 20-yard truckload, you can get it at a and so that will be up, the pricing will be up, how to order it's coming and will be up. And so the thing that I will say to people, I mean, Andrew's asked a lot of questions here too. He asked one about, understand, we should test the soil. What if we don't have the money to do this? How can we begin to remediate our soil? We've given you some really good pointers right now to start off. You'll be able to check out that class if you haven't seen it. You can take a look at the book. That, is relatively inexpensive. And what you can do is look at the bacterial enzymes. The bacterial enzymes we're talking about, it's 2 tablespoons per gallon. It's a very, very small amount that you're using. So it's not exorbitantly expensive. Making compost tea out of a bag of compost that costs, $18 or $16, you get a lot of compost tea out of that. So those are things that can be done. You can buy, fish hydrolysate, which is, cold fish. You can buy cold kelp that we talk about using. There's a product that Aquaflow sells that's called Liver Soil Conditioner. It's humic shale that comes from million-year-old forests that have been decomposed in Utah. It's a great mined product that helps build soil back as well. So
Right.
those are the places to start.
Yeah. So Dawn asks, a friend thinks that she can listen to this, this is great. A friend thinks that she can pour the foundation over contaminated soil, then just remediate around that. I know it's not a good thing to do, but what can I say to her specifically about this? It's a good question. Really good question.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah.
I mean, if that was me, I would remediate that area with the SLF 100 and the compost tea prior to. I know you can't put compost down in that because to pour a foundation, you can't have more than 3% or 4%. You have to have
Organic
organic
matter.
matter in it because it won't compact, right? But that doesn't mean you can't pour bacterial enzymes over it or compost tea over it and start that process of breaking that stuff down before they pour the before
Yeah,
they
and
pour it.
what I would also say is that, it seems like a humongous daunting task, right? To remediate your soil, but it's not. It's so much quicker, and to live on a concrete home, a concrete garden and all that, and it's so much, it's a shame to have to do that. You don't have to do that. Just remediate the soil. I mean, my goodness, pouring a whole foundation, pouring a concrete, uh, let's see, yeah, pouring the foundation and doing that, and it's just, nuh-uh. You want to be able to plant in your garden, and it's not that much of a daunting task.
Well,
It
the
really,
foundation is for the rebuild of their home, right? So
Right.
they're just
oh,
gonna
oh,
she's talking about like pouring the foundation for the new build and then remediating their yard.
oh, I see. Right,
So
right,
what is the scientific
right.
sort of information
Yeah.
about like VOCs or whatever that comes through the concrete into her house? Like because a lot of people have asked this, but then I had my friend ask and I was like, okay, I need to find out the real science on it.
All right. So if you're on an ash footprint, right, that has been highly contaminated.
Yep.
Um, there's so many other things that go through there, right? There become animals that are around that foundation. There are people around that foundation. There are kids that might dig around that foundation. There are so many other variables that to not at least do some remediation, right? Which the minimum would be using bacterial enzymes and using some sort of bacteria in the form of compost tea, or at least at least the SLF 100 drenches to start that process. I just think if you have the opportunity to do it, it's an inexpensive fix to try to start to remediate some of the problem that's there. It's not going to completely fix it. But then I'm thinking to myself too, like, uh, there'll be pipes, there'll be all kinds of stuff that go through that foundation and to that foundation. I don't
And
think there's enough information to not know if there'll be off-gassing, if there'll be other things that happen from that as things are, over time. Um,
also, when it rains, what's
water,
going to happen when it rains, right? Is the toxin's going to flow through from underneath into the other areas of the garden. When they, pour that foundation, what are they going to do? Scoop up that soil, put it into the garden, and then pour the foundation, the thickness of the foundation on top there. What are they going to do with that soil? It's just
I
they.
would
It's
recommend the
so much
SLF
easier if
100.
they can. It's so
I
much
recommend
easier,
drenching it and,
huh?
and then going from there.
Exactly. So much easier. Yeah. Do we have to test for PAHs? Says
Well,
Michelle.
yes. I mean, here's the thing. That's a really good question, because that's from, unburnt wood, from unburnt oils, from unburnt things that are organic, right? And so, yes, we had a lot of that blew in the toxic ash dust, right? So we're looking at right now. I literally just sent off a question to one of our labs today about those, and I'm waiting for an answer back on that. So it's something that I definitely have on my radar for sure. But the other good news is, here's the good news. You know what breaks down PAHs? Bacteria.
Yep. Yeah. So exactly. So Sake says, I completely get that the soil is toxic, but at my property in Altadena, everything has come up thriving and lush.
Hmm.
I it has everybody. Please raise your hand if that's the case anywhere that you're at. If it's come out, if your garden is pretty lush. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And so I even have a volunteer tomato plant growing in a spot that hasn't had tomatoes planted in it for at least 5 years. Not going to eat them, but something must be right in the soil. I do want to remediate, however. Just pointing out that everything in the soil isn't dead or so far gone that it has stopped growing plant life.
Because her plants didn't die doesn't mean that she doesn't have exudates coming off the plants, right, at the root level. What that means is this is more important than ever. You test, and especially here, I would test to see what are my toxicology. What, are there VOCs? I'd run the 8 metals analysis. I'd look and see like what's happening. Because that happens all the time. Like already in Malibu, already in areas where right near where we are, there's a lot of areas that are greening up really quickly. Grasses are coming, things are growing. You're starting to see, leaf out on some trees that even burned. I mean, so yes, everything isn't dead, but it doesn't mean there's not toxicity in the soil. And it
Right.
doesn't mean there's not toxicity in those plants.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at like biochar, right? When you look at the burned, the burn product that you put on there, it's in soil products as well. Biochar helps and it keeps the moisture in the soil and in potting soils as well. So, it helps to grow your plants really well. So, that's one of the things that have come up here. So let's see here. Sake says EFRU did an excellent presentation on soil contamination last night. They talked about chromium, dioxin, arsenic, heavy metals, even mercury, and how lead is only one thing we should be testing for, both in our ground and our bodies. Yes. Yep. Good. Very good. Awesome. So happy to hear that. Melanie says, can you talk about how the soil samples should be collected? For example, should the sample be more with surface material or deeper? I heard a lecture from someone at UCB who said the sample should be more from the surface where the toxins are most likely to be found. Well, the way we do it, the way we've been doing it, the way we were taught by even soil scientists, right? The best leading soil scientist is you're going to be looking at similar areas that are in the garden. Like if there are very large trees in the garden in the back, then you're going to be testing in there. On the side of the home or in the front of the home, if you have a lawn, you're going to be testing a separate sample there. And then if you have just smaller shrubs or something on the side of the home, that's a whole different area of planting. You're going to have a separate sample there. So there's going to be like three different samples in that type of a home. But if it's all uh, something where it all had, shrubs throughout the front, the sides, and the back, then what you would do is you look at an area in the front, and each area should be, you can do one sample for the front, sides, and the backs. But what you want to do is you want to, for the front yard, for example, you would test 5 different spaces in that front yard and you get us like a soil probe to be able to push it into the soil as deeply as possible, and then pull it out, put that soil into a bucket, and then do that in 4 other areas in the front. So normally you'd have about maybe, 2 cups of soil from that. You
And
mix.
you're going, Norma, you're going at that depth though. You are going at that 2 to 3 inch depth. You're not going, you're not going deep into that soil. You're going into.
Yeah, because it's probably not that good. Yeah. So you would test about 5 different spaces in one area of your garden, and sort of like a dice where you've got one in the center, one out here, and one out there. You'd mix that soil really well, and then you would take 2 cups of that sample and put it in a baggie, and then you'd go into the side yard and you'd do the same thing. And you can actually, if you feel that they're pretty close to each other, the front and the side, then you can actually just mix those 10 areas, and mix them, and then just put 2 cups in a baggie for those areas. So but you
And
don't
label
just,
it
huh?
and label it with a Sharpie.
And you label it with a Sharpie. On the date collected, you want to say sample A or front yard or whatever, and then you make sure that the soil is dry and that it's not moist. So you keep the baggie open until you're ready to send it out, and then you basically you remove all the moisture as much as you can, and then you're going to remove the air and seal it and send it out that way. Sometimes, like for the VOCs, what you want to do is you want to put it in a glass jar, and sometimes they'll just require about two 2-ounce glass jars for VOC collections, but that depends on your lab. And so you're going to have to buy glass jars yourself. We get the small canning glass jars, and so one representative sample would be 2 of those, and you send those out in a packet. And sometimes some labs require you to actually ice the soil tests, the soil samples, and so before they arrive, in order to give the best results.
All right, we've got about
Yeah, we
15
got a
minutes.
lot here.
Yeah, so
There's
let's
there's a test. There's a free test for lead in areas of the Eaton Fire run by LA County. They provide information on how to collect soil samples.
again, we recommend the RCRA 8, where you
Yep,
go for arsenic, lead, mercury, cadmium, barium, selenium, silver, um, chromium. That's, the RCRA 8 is a much more complete test.
yep, perfect. Yep, and LA County's only testing for lead. You got it. So efru.la is a great site to send your samples to. Yes, Stephanie, you have a question. Let me see here. I'm gonna have you unmute. Perfect. Go ahead. Stephanie.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can.
Okay, good. So let me try this. Okay.
Great.
So
How you doing? We remember
so
you.
hi. I remember you guys. So I just got on here a little bit late, but I'm enjoying learning a lot, listening, but it also seems like you have a group of experienced gardeners and do-it-yourselfers here, pretty much. I am not that person. I am taking care of a whole lot of other things at this point as well. I have taken the first bit of advice that when I spoke with you before, I have had my burnt tree. I am in like full zone. My house is standing. Everything around me is burnt down. I'm in Palisades. There's like one other house across the street from me that's standing. Everything else is burned down pretty much as far as you can see up and down the block. So, and around. So it's pretty toxic. The house inside is very toxic. Things are growing outside. I have a large yard, like 11,000 square feet, and various levels. I have had the debris removed. The idea was don't do anything. First thing to do is get the outside debris, the burnt trees, burnt shrubs, burnt all that stuff, burnt matter of that sort removed. I did have other structures on my property burnt. So I did follow your advice, got the burnt stuff removed, have had the burnt structural stuff removed. There's still some
The
bit
shed,
of
right? I remember
yes,
the
had the
shed.
shed removed. Good memory. Had the shed removed. I have to rebuild a fence for security reasons. That's kind of the first thing I need to do now. But what I'm looking at, and I have a friend and he's been watering some of my plants, and some of them look, yes, they're very happy with the water. And then I had my tree guy who removed all the stuff. He said, you need to get some water to the trees so that the trees that are healthy still will survive. I have an oak. It was burnt, but it's doing all right. It's, anyway, so I've got fruit trees also. Some were not touched at all, but they're in the backyard. And I have a lemon tree that's had to have some bunch of branches removed, but what's there is coming back.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I guess my question, one of many questions, but the first one that occurred to me is that, I'm kind of having to do one or two things at a time. I can't, it's overwhelming. And I'm dealing with other stuff as well that's also overwhelming at the same time. So my question is, how long, like, is it, and first of all, do you also recommend watering? Because I think you told me I should continue to water.
Very much. And that's such a good thing you mentioned.
Okay. And I have an irrigation guy because some of my irrigation is totally destroyed at the bottom where I have fruit trees, persimmon tree, pear tree. I have an avocado tree that burnt and is gone, had to be removed. But these other trees, all the irrigation is gone from there. So I have an irrigation guy. I had him out. He's going to give me an estimate. So I'm going to get the irrigation rebuilt and we'll be able to water. And right now it's just if my friend goes and hand waters. But
that's actually really good to hand water and with a really good hose, right? With a really good
I don't know if it's a good hose.
But a watering wand.
So let's Stephanie, can we get what's the question? What's plaguing you?
So the question is, how long can I go before it's like too late to begin remediate? Because I want to have you guys come out and really assess for real, like what needs to be done at a certain point. I'm trying to get the preliminary stuff taken care of, at least, irrigation and how long
is the cleanup work done around you yet?
It's in the process of getting done around my house, like the other houses.
Yes, the other house.
Oh God, no. I mean, houses are gone. The house on one side, they did a great job. They did it they privately had their house removed and all their yard, and they took like a foot off. They have some yard still there too, but they're watering and they have no house and they've done that. So it's pretty clean over there. Other side, FEMA removed the house, but all the other hardscape is still there and they have done nothing else.
So you're
So,
fine. You're fine. You're not at a
You're
danger
ready.
point at all. You're fine.
Yeah.
so once I get irrigation back functioning, would
That's
that
the
be the
best.
time at which to call you and get
Yes.
Yeah.
something going for real?
That's the
Yes.
first step is
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And is there a time frame in which I should be concerned that it'd be too late, or is, because it could be a couple months at the
No.
rate everything's
We've
going?
been thinking, and in all the discussions we've been having with everybody, it's going to be starting from like now for certain people to, and that means getting the soil testing first, really looking at that so that we have a barometer out the gate, then at the midway point, and then as you know, as you're moving into the maintenance side of it, let's see how the biology's coming along. Let's see how the
Okay,
toxicity's been removed. So no, and you're going to be having people that start all the way from now all the way up into November, December. So
right.
this is that window of soil remediation in Los Angeles is starting to just come upon us, really.
Yes, it
Okay,
really is just starting now. I mean, that's exactly right.
okay,
Okay. Very
okay.
So
good.
we're going to try to, I mean, we have some other questions. We were trying to keep it to an hour and a half because you guys have been
Right.
extremely
Let's yeah.
patient and
Did we answer
helpful. Did that help,
yours
sis? Did that
okay?
help, Stephanie?
Sure, yeah, sure. I will get in touch again. I just
Okay.
wanted
Okay.
a basic view on that sort of sense. I thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Great.
Okay.
Good to see you
Thanks.
again.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Okay. Don, apply for phase 3 fire aid. Okay. Okay. So Andrew, understand that we should test soil if we don't have the money
We
to
did that
do this.
question. We answered
You
that.
did this already.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay. Awesome. So then we've got Adriana. What kind of composting
Answered
general?
that one.
We did this one.
Yep.
Adriana, maybe we can see if LA, that's right, we did that one. Can you share with us this compost info in a DIY type of info packet?
Well, if you go on to when we get the class up on the YouTube site, I think that's going to help. And then honestly, this is a very weird position to be in too. So that part of this is because I I I love and hate the fact that I make really good compost, and I love and hate the fact that I had to write this book because this book wasn't going to ever happen. I was working on a whole other project.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I was working on a whole other
That's it.
project
Thanks.
called that was about detoxification of soil, right? So this a lot of what's in this book was from research and work and notes that was going into a completely different direction. And so I don't like the fact that I have stuff to sell everybody or to make or that I do, but it's what I do. And so I'm grateful for the fact that we can offer some solutions and some help. And so you have the class that's going to be up on the YouTube. We may or may not do another class. I do think I would like to do another one of these. I'd love to do another virtual town hall with everybody and see where everybody's at and continue this process and get more people, involved if they'd like to, or hear what all of you have to say. And we're going to be doing some live talks. We're doing a talk in Pasadena at what's the church, Norma?
At the Harvest Rock Church in
On
Pasadena. We're going to be
on
doing a big talk there in
July.
huh?
Yeah, in July.
Yeah, in July, like the beginning of July. But yeah, I mean,
July 9th.
we can
July
try to
9th
do.
at 6:30, we're doing a talk there on soil remediation for the LA fires.
Yes, exactly. And Sake asked, please provide the URL for the bulk compost to purchase. Number2organics.com. Number and then the number 2 organics.com. You spell out everything except the number 2.com. And then I'll be
Somebody
asking,
asked, Norma, Michelle asked, how does bacteria bind lead so it is no longer bioavailable? The soil engineer at Rio said that lead does not go away. And that's what I said earlier. Lead does not go away. It could be there a century. But what it does, the polysaccharides, which are a gummy, sticky substance, are on the outside of the bacteria. And what they do is they bind the metal ion to the cell wall of the bacteria and keep that in place, keep it stable, keep it under the ground where your dog's not going to, dig it up, and keep that stuff so as water flushes that down, it stays in the soil. It's not up at the surface where it can be airborne or it can be waterborne. So that's the main thing. And then there are other ways. You know, there are other things. There are other types of bacteria that are bioaccumulators that will uptake actually different metals into them. That gets rid of them. There's biotransformation that can occur. So the best thing that we can do is build the biology back in our soil as healthy as it can be to remediate the soil, including binding and mitigating any issue from metals.
great. Yeah, Sake says, to Andrew's point, many residents, homeowners, renters, landlords do not have money to extensively test soil and to remediate that soil. It means those who can will, and those who can't won't. So recontamination is a huge concern. It means that spending money when we're trying to rebuild on something that might not remain clean feels hopeless. I get it. This is great feedback
Yeah.
from everybody.
Yeah, so here's the thing that we do. That's why we give this in microscopic doses. We call it microdosing. Okay, so that's how we approach applying applications of biology. It's not in huge, massive quantities. So it's in ways that are, in small doses over time. For people that are in the actual burn zone, you have a little bit of time. It's a little bit different, like with Susan's case, where she's got the dog, she's in the house, and she's got to, like, let's get the remediation going, let's get that SLF 100 and get the T going. But for somebody whose house may be toxic inside, they were so in that fire zone that they're not living in their house. They've got a little bit of time because they're doing the interior work, and then they've got to go, and then they can start doing the remediation outside. Then you've got the people that have to rebuild. They've got time too to do this remediation. And yes, I know we're all being, you're all being pulled in a 50 different directions, right? But if you're going to go home, you have pets, you have kids, you have family, you have friends, you have pollinators, you have, all that life, wildlife that was in, up in the canyon there in Altadena, then somehow, some way, we find a way to make it work that we can remediate this soil and
Yeah, little bit,
make
little
home
by
as
little.
safe as possible.
Microdosing, you can just go out there, like if at a minimum, right? Buy a bag of booze blend biodynamic compost from Malibu Compost and go out there and just like you're feeding chickens, just throw it out on your whole land.
And
Just
get
just
that,
that
get it. Yeah,
one
perfect.
bag goes a long way. It's just so biologically active. You won't believe our whole property just exploded with plants just by doing that, in the spring and in the fall. But for you guys, if you just got one bag and did it once, did it every month, right? Once a month, it would go so far. And just 1 quart of SLF 100 and did little drenches with that. I mean, it really does not cost so much to do, and you can just do it yourself. Just you could. It's easy. It's not difficult. It's you think remediation. Oh my God, it's really not.
That's why we put it
That's
in
the
the
whole
book too,
purpose
so
of
that it's a
this.
DIY, so that anyone can do it. We were out today. We're blessed. We were working in our garden today doing something, and we were instead of carrying big bags of compost, we put a little bit of compost into a few pails and walked up the hill and threw chicken scratch the compost out, that just like Norma was saying, and then watered it in with a watering wand. And just preparing an area that needs to have compost, and needs to have biological activity to it so that we can grow something there. So
Yeah, yep.
keep
Go
it
ahead, Beverly.
simple as possible, right? And not don't try to bite off more than you can chew.
Right. So Don says, do you spray this compost on your whole property and all plants? It's
You
set.
answered. You answered that already.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm all good. Thank you.
I'm losing it.
These things take a lot out of you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man. 8:35. We got a tea to create for tonight. Okay. Hi, Randy. How quickly did you see these
I
changes?
answered that, love.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the thing. All right.
Okay,
Okay.
so
So
FLF 100, Andrew, they do have it at Aquaflow. It's there. They do have it at the Anawalt. They just, some of them don't know, but the one for sure in West LA, the main Anawalt has it, and so does Malibu. That's not probably near you, so you really want to look at Aquaflow in Glendale. Those are the guys. I know they have the quarts and the half gallons.
and
Wow.
yeah, so Andrew asked if we would consider doing an in-person workshop to show people step by step in person the exact remediation protocols. It's an interesting thought, send
That's
us
a
an email.
possibility. I mean, we can start with looking at the class, like the one that we offered, see if that doesn't give you enough
Yes,
information.
indeed.
Start there, and
And
then
or
if you
the
want
book
more, come to the.
yeah,
He's in Altadena. Come to the talk in Pasadena.
exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, let's see here. Okay, how does the bacteria bind lead so it's no longer
I said that. We answered
You
that.
did say that. Yeah, I
Yep.
remember. Did you do the rest, sweetheart? Did you keep
I,
what's
um,
left, hon?
I think maybe that's it, right? I
Wow.
think.
Does anybody
Anybody
else
else have
have
any
a
other questions? You
question?
can raise your hand before we. Yes,
Yes, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Bettina.
Bettina does.
Let me I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay,
Great.
perfect.
I'm looking for my question in the chat because I wrote it and I'll just read it.
Oh,
That's okay. If a soil test reveals the presence of the RCRA8 metals, do these respond to bioremediation at different rates and timeframes?
Yes. So here's what will happen. So if you've got stuff that's in the RC R8 that RA that are there, then what will happen is that all of those things, um, yes, are different, and are different elements. And what will happen is, still the bacteria will still work the same way with each of them. And that's the main thing. And so on some of them, it's even more effective. I used lead as the example because everybody has been talking about lead. There are others that it actually works even, it actually does do some bioremediation. It doesn't just bind it and hold it there inert. What it actually does is actually start to break some of those things down and make them much less toxic. So, but really using the bacteria and the 50 different strains of bacteria that are in the SLF, and then using the compost are the best things that you could do to have any shot at really remediating those metals.
and here's
Right.
yeah. Is there anything else there, Bettina?
No, no, not for me.
No? Okay,
That
okay.
was great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Elisa says, do you recommend, this is really interesting. I'm glad that you brought this up because we've had this come up a few times. So do you recommend importing 50/50 topsoil and compost mix to raise the grade from the 6 inches of the topsoil removal as part of the remediation? So, we heard that, for somewhere as well that, that like LA County recommends, oh, by the way, those 6 inches that were hauled out, you should bring in some other soil to replace that. That's the way to do it. And that's what got us started here. We were really, really upset at that response because number one, you guys weren't even told that you were going to be, that that was going to be the remediation answer, right? And so you didn't even know you were going to be spending money now to bring 6 inches
Correcting.
back.
So yeah, I mean, so how I look at that,
Not
because they were
necessary.
talking about that in that LA County Public Health, that soil talk that they did, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now, and they were talking about just covering areas with topsoil, right, and covering areas with mulch, which is not remediation at all. But if you've taken soil out, that doesn't mean that you're going to bring in soil that's loaded biologically, that's healthy, that's safe necessarily. Where did the soil come from? Has it been tested? Does it have, what levels of organic matter in there? Where's the compost from? Where did they get that topsoil? So all those things become important questions. And if you have, you know, that means the biology, when you make that cut, right? That means you also are cutting at that level where the biology still keeps going down below that 6 inches of the soil. What's happening there? Is there still any good life in there? Are we cutting off food sources to that biology that's been kind of like starting to help build and grow some of the plants that we're seeing that are still growing? So it's really important to know where they're sourcing topsoil from. If you want a good topsoil, we have it also. It'll be on the number 2 site. It's got 100-year-old aged dairy cow manure in there. It's certified organic and it's sandy loam and it's tested. It's
It's
beautiful.
it's extraordinary. It actually looks like compost. It's the real deal because it took 80 to 100 years to form, and real topsoil
And the
takes a
reason
long
we have
time.
it is because at the big super sites for Amazon and FedEx, that they're taking the old Basque and Dutch dairies in Chino, and they've been stripping them and building giant warehouses. And what happened is they were throwing that material out, taking it to the dump. And my friends who are the soil engineers asked us if we could help do something with it so that it just didn't get wasted. So we tested everything. And this is now about 2.5, 3 years ago, and we formed another company, Number 2 Organics, to save and salvage that soil and that land. And so the developers gave us a farm site on that property that we make the compost and we make windrows of topsoil. And it's been a really, really rewarding project for a piece of Southern California history that was going to the trash.
Right. And let's see here.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of good information and resources. Awesome. Planning to do testing and remediating. Someone on this call said that everything in the soil is dead. It isn't. Okay.
No, it's not
Good.
all dead. There's a lot, but the main thing is even though we still have stuff that's living, we just have to make sure that what are the levels of toxicity, and if we and I inherently know. I go back to my gut instinct, right? I know from those nights of that fire, we have toxins that are in the soil. We have poisons that are in the soil. I don't have to be. I'm testing, and but my instinct that night and the days that followed and the weeks that followed were that this is just not. This is a well beyond a normal fire situation in Los Angeles, and we are going to have to do something that's going to be extraordinary to help it, and help this along. So that's what we're doing. What I hope is that this has helped you, and that you can reach out to us and we can continue communicating, and that you all feel comfortable opening up about this dialogue, that like maybe we better look at this. So that's what I really hope. I just,
Yes. And
it makes us feel terrible, right? So like it's like you have to look at it and go like, okay, what ways in our lives, right? And I'm sorry I just cut you off, Norma.
no, that's okay, darling.
I was just going to say, like, what ways can we be of service, right? Like, how can we be of service? And this is one way that we can try to be of service and give back to all of our fellow Angelinos and community members and say, hey, we do soil remediation. We do this work. This is our hands are always dirty. That's what we do, and our hearts are broken by what's happened here, and we don't want people not hearing what we believe to be is the truth.
So what another thing here I wanted to say is that at Anawalt Lumber in Pico, we know the buyer there. Randy's known her for years and years. They sell they sell Malibu compost there. They sell number two organics there. And the buyer really, she listened to one of those free soil remediation for the LA fires classes, and she said she wants to carry all of the products in the book. And so what she did is created an end cap, and the end cap is at the Pico store, and she also sells the book. And if you go there, every single product that is in that book is on that end cap because she's rad. And so she's going to try to get it to happen in all of the Anna Walt lumber stores around LA, like including the one in the Palisades, including the
Yeah.
one in Malibu and in Hollywood. So it's that easy though. You just literally go and you can even look through the book and see all the products are there, and it's got humic acid and everything. Um, Darling Pete,
I know he just asked a great question. You're
yeah,
probably looking at like less, you're probably looking at like between a quarter of a gallon and a gallon of the SLF 100.
yeah.
And
He asked.
they
Wait,
sell
first
those off.
I wanted to mention what he asked.
Oh, okay.
So how many gallons of SLF 100 does it take to cover 2,000 square feet of a foundation area? And at what cost for a DIY
Oh, I thought
person?
it said 20. I'm glad you reread that. So he's going to be using, you're really going to be using not much because it's 2 tablespoons per gallon.
Per gallon.
Right. So I thought it said 20,000. Excuse me. I didn't see. I thought that's what I thought. I was like, oh, that's going to be a big house. But
Yeah.
anyway, so you're not really going to be, you're spending just on the SLF 100. You're looking probably at, less $75, maybe
Yeah,
70.
I mean they have quart size, gallon size, 2.5 gallons, and five
Huh?
gallon drums.
Yeah.
So I mean you're probably gonna
Less
need
than a
like
gallon for
a
sure.
gallon. I'd start with a gallon. Yeah, and so that's not very much. I don't remember how much they're selling the gallons for, but
70, I think
um,
$74.
all this is fascinating, perfect. Great, Sake. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to get that feedback. I just want to say that advocacy group like EFRU and forums like this will help us organize to push local officials, county, etc., to come up with funds to help us all remediate. That is awesome. That is so great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Um,
and something. I mean, that's the thing. I've been just talking with I've been talking with the CFO of our company this last few days, and we've been putting pricing out on stuff. And so I've been looking at every single way to get the compost out as close to cost as I possibly can and the topsoil. So you'll see stuff come up on for number two organics that we are only going to offer that to the people that are in the fire zones in Los Angeles that are remediating for the fires. It's not something that's going out everywhere. So, um, you know, and the people that work at our company are in Northern California. Our farms in Sonoma. We have another farm up in Oregon. So they're not even here, but they're here with us, right? And they want to do the right thing too. And so do my partners, the soil engineers that made this all possible down there in Chino. So, so we hope this helped everyone and gave everybody another look at something that is not comfortable, but it is a reality for us that we can make better. So thank you, everyone.
yes, indeed. Great. Are we finishing up here or something, honey?
We are. I think we're at like eight. We're like at 8:49. We've been on for quite a while.
Okay. Okay, Dorothy, wonderful Dorothy. says, thank you, Stephanie. Says Dorothy, she's the one who got us into the Harvest Rock Church connection. She said, see you at Harvest Rock Church July 9th at 6:30
Yes,
p.m. or
we
6:30
we will be there,
p.m.
you
Or
know, and please reach out to us at growrealorganic.com if we can, be helpful. And we
July
wish,
9th at 6:30 p.m. That's definitely it. Yep.
yeah,
Fantastic. Thank
we
you very
wish
much, everyone.
everybody the best. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. God bless you all. Thank you.